Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Intimate Skylight Gallery at New York Historical Society. It's the first time I've done a program in here. It just feels different. My name is Russell Shorto. I'm the director of the New Amsterdam Project here at the New York Historical Society. We do programming related to the Dutch city of New Amsterdam that became New York, and also related to themes from that period. The Dutch pioneered capitalism, tolerance, slavery, and water issues, water management way back when, and are still at the forefront of it. Hence, these events, which we call the ClimateLab. This is about the 10th or 12th ClimateLab we've done. I think all but one, it has rained on the night of the ClimateLab, which is appropriate to the topic, but it's not great for turnout. So thank you all for coming in the middle of kind of a not so great day. I'm very happy and grateful for Habitat for Humanity for agreeing to do this program, and I particularly want to thank Isabella Watson from Habitat for Humanity. She's the director of the homeownership program, and she connected these two things and realized that this net zero program that Habitat is doing is just perfect for the ClimateLab. But we have focused some programs on larger, global themes related to climate change. For the most part, though, we focus on New York City. So the kind of what we're going to be talking about today is obviously completely related to that. I'll just give you the quick overview, and then I'll introduce our two guests. It was recently that Habitat for Humanity, New York City and Westchester County announced the Habitat Net Zero project to turn 13 vacant, dilapidated properties in southeast Queens into 16 solar-powered, energy-efficient, affordable homes. The aim of the project is to keep energy use of these homes over the course of a year at net zero. And the two leaders here are to discuss the project's progress from financing to construction to home ownership, as well as their thinking about the future of sustainable housing in New York City. Immediately to my left, Charlotte Bell is the Vice President for Housing Services at Habitat for Humanity, New York City and Westchester County. It's a long name for the, she's also a loan officer for the Habitat NYC Community Fund and has been working in affordable housing preservation and community development in New York City for over a decade. Juliana Bernal Guinand is the Director of Real Estate Development at Habitat for Humanity, New York City and Westchester County, and manages construction for the Habitat Net Zero project. She has worked in affordable housing development in New York City since 2018. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for being here. By all means. Probably you're all Habitat insiders, but for those who are not, can one of you give us an overview? I mean, I know Habitat for Humanity starting in the 70s. I always had it in my mind that it was started by Jimmy Carter. That's not true?
That is not true.
Okay. But is that a common thing that people think that? Okay.
Yes. We say that Jimmy Carter is our most famous volunteer, though he did not start the organization. That was someone by the name of Millard Fuller. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Russell. My name's Charlotte. It is so great to be here. Thanks for having us, especially this momentous week after the End Fossil Fuel March yesterday with such a wonderful turnout. So it's very cool to be here speaking with you all about our work. So Habitat for Humanity in New York City has been around for 40 years. We'll be celebrating our 40-year anniversary next year. And so our CEO, Karen Haycox, likes to say, you've seen one Habitat, you've seen them all. Or, I'm sorry. I messed it up. I just said it. You've seen one Habitat, you've seen one Habitat. And that's because each affiliate operates according to the community in which it's located. So the urban affiliates versus the rural affiliates are very different. But at the same time, we do many of the things that you think that we do as a Habitat for Humanity affiliate. So we do engage volunteers on our sites. We do build from the ground up, in many cases, affordable homeownership opportunities and sell them to low to moderate income New Yorkers. So many things that if you're familiar with Habitat for Humanity, that you're familiar with, we do them here in New York City in this context.
And it's international organization in 70 countries, something like that?
Yes.
In every state, I assume?
Yes, several affiliates in every state.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, Juliana, you want to tell us a little bit about the Net Zero project, how it came into being?
Of course. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. A little bit about the Habitat Net Zero project. So it was a response to a request for proposal from the New York City Housing Authority, so known as NYCHA, to develop 13 scattered, dilapidated vacant homes in Southeast Queens. These homes have been vacant for decades, like 40 plus years. It was just some homes that they acquired from the federal government and they were not able to maintain. This is the third set of homes that we acquired from the New York City Housing Authority. The first portfolio was 13 homes, all got rehabilitated. The second portfolio was 23 homes, 20 got rehabilitated and 3 new construction. And then for a Habitat Net Zero project, we really wanted to do something different, which is why we proposed this highly energy efficient, almost passive house, solar-powered homes. Our proposal included modular construction as well. So what we wanted to do is propose a scalable, repeatable model that we could apply to all 13 sites and therefore have more efficiency in terms of design, have more efficiency in terms of construction, and also with the modular construction, be able to get better control of quality, precision, and time. So yes, we submitted our proposal back in 2018. We're awarded this project and started construction last year.
So the city has come to Habitat in the past, and this project, you decided, okay, now we're ready. We think we can pull this off. We can do a net zero construction.
Yeah, so typically in New York City, we are basically affordable housing developers. The way we acquire the land is from the city, typically through requests for proposals. So the city has several vacant lots or vacant homes across the city that they issue requests for proposals to, for developers to apply, submit a proposal, and say, like, this is what we would like to do in this site or in this cluster of sites. So that's what we said. Like, we've already successfully completed the other 2 projects. And for this Habitat Net Zero, we were going to say we wanted to do something beyond, not just typical gut rehab, but also do something that was sustainably conscious, that was more innovative, and that could really break the barrier and give us a model to maybe develop other properties in the future.
And do you see it now as a model?
It is, yes, definitely. So what we did is, based on the sites, we came up with 3 model types, model A, B, and C. In some cases, we even, in a site where there was only 1 house, we made 2 houses there, so we increased the unit count as well. We went from 13 homes to 16 homes. As I mentioned, 3 model types, different sizes, and all accommodate to the zoning regulations and requirements. So with these 3 model types, which they were also designed with green building like concepts in mind. The idea was for them to be passive house. The orientation was also critical. But yes, we developed a model in which we preserve the core, which is the kitchen and the stairs, and then the envelope of the house just gets larger depending on what zoning allows.
Let me back up a little bit. Charlotte, why is sustainability important to Habitat in its future development?
Yeah, I mean, sustainability and affordable housing go hand in hand. It hasn't always been, that easy, mostly because of funding, and we have very tight budgets. But as technologies have, become more available and as funding sources have increased, we've been able to build this more into our development budgets. And so, permanent affordability is also a part of our commitment in our model. And so sustainability and permanent affordability also are really key to how we operate. We've been working the last decade, we've been working on strategies to make our homes permanently affordable. So not just the first household that we sell to will be able to afford that home at a low to moderate income, but in perpetuity. And so having our homes operate efficiently also makes those homes more sustainable and more affordable long term from an operating cost standpoint. So it's really exciting to be able to couple our model of permanent affordability with sustainability. And it's also, you know, a matter of improving the quality of life for the people we're selling the homes to, and then of course that impact, you know, is a ripple effect for the communities in which we're building.
And is Habitat in other parts of the country doing the same thing? Is this net zero project bigger than these 16 units in Queens?
Yeah, I mean, it's always really interesting to hear how other affiliates are operating. Other affiliates are really focused. I would say other urban affiliates are really focused on the permanent affordability model. You know, we see our opportunities to develop decreasing, especially in the urban context, because land is not a renewable resource. So we interface a lot with other affiliates on our strategies for developing permanently affordable home ownership. I think the energy efficiency component, that is something also very particular to each affiliate because funding is so different across your municipality, your city, your state. You know, and so I think that's a challenge within our country because every place has to operate so differently. So I know that, you know, being innovative, being creative is really challenging because you're always at the, you know, like what's available to you, right? And so we definitely see ourselves as a really innovative and forward-thinking affiliate. And so we try to, you know, share how we do things with other affiliates so they can advocate to make change. That's a big part of what we as an affiliate do in New York City. We advocate at a city, a statewide level, and also national. And so I think we have to share so that things can improve in other cities and states, particularly with options for sustainability. I mean, the Inflation Reduction Act with the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund is going to be a huge opportunity for not-for-profit developers like us. It's just been really slow to get that, you know, off the ground.
And how exactly? Can you lay out how that's going to?
Well, I think the financing opportunities will be really transformative. You know, we have a community fund at the Habitat NYC Community Fund, so we're hoping to also participate to be a lender, but the money that will also be available for us to borrow to be able to do our work, you know, for the budgets that Juliana creates, you know, to build in those extra components. I mean, generally creating energy efficient, you know, development projects isn't necessarily that much more expensive, but when you're talking about like 5 to 10% more expensive, that can like kill a project for us because we have to be affordable at a certain income. And so if we're able to access additional grants or affordable financing to build in those additional components, that's really like what we need. So that's where the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund will be transformative.
So those are government subsidies that will bring down the cost by that amount to make it doable.
Yes, the financial institutions that will receive that money then have like the mandate to lend it out at flexible and affordable rates, specifically for not-for-profit organizations, community-based developers like Habitat.
Right, because you know as I was preparing for this, what's in the back of my mind is I really wanted to do solar panels in my home, and you know I know the prices come down, but then when you know I don't even remember what the total amount was. It was some horrendous amount of money, and it would have you know it would have taken like 20 or 30 years to pay it off, and I was like, you know, this isn't for me. So what makes it possible in a scenario like this, I'm guessing, is on the one hand you're gutting a place, and so you're starting from scratch, which is helpful because you don't have all the problems of an old leaky house, and also subsidies for nonprofits. Is that right, or are there other elements here?
It is right. So I would say the first component is the fact that we are demolishing the existing structures in most of the cases and building new homes will give us more control over the thermal envelope and will make us make this thermal envelope very tight. As you mentioned, not a leaky old house, but we have more control over that, which will in turn control the performance of the home. In terms of subsidy specifically, so we partner with the city and with the state. We get subsidy from the New York City Department of Housing and Preservation and Development, also known as HPD, through their Open Door program, which is their only program for affordable home ownership in New York City, for new construction at least. And we also work with the state, with New York State Homes and Community Renewal. They have their Affordable Housing Corporation program, which also provides subsidy to these homes. But also, it's been a lot of advocating with city agencies about the importance of doing this. Because as Charlotte mentioned, it is an increase, like, of the initial cost for construction, and it is more expensive than building just a typical home that we were used to building, but we also need to advocate because it's not only selling a home at an affordable price, but allowing the homeowners to maintain the home at an affordable price. So by having solar panels, and as you mentioned, like, by providing the solar panels ourselves from the offset as construction costs, rather than having them have to pay for those, they're getting all of the benefit of the solar panels, which is a reduced utility cost, which will make the home more affordable in the
And we
long
should,
run.
I should ask you, who qualifies for these homes?
So these homes are for low to moderate income households. There's a different area medium income for each of the homes that's eligible. They're capped at 80%, 90%, and two homes at 120% of AMI. Usually it's first-time home buyers that have good credit score. The way this works is through a marketing period that's led by the HPD, by Housing Preservation and Development. So it's a 60-day marketing period in which eligible home buyers submit their application, and then through a lottery, the home buyers are selected.
And where are we on this project?
Waiting for a live date for marketing very soon, hopefully, so that these homes can start being marketed soon. Construction-wise, we have 3 gut rehabs that we also did with volunteer work, also trying to reach those standards of energy efficiency. Those are completed, and we're working our way through the modular homes right now.
So as you said, Charlotte, the classic habitat model is working with volunteers. So volunteers can do the demolition. Can they also install all the new bells and whistles?
Unfortunately, just given the Department of Building requirements, the work the volunteers are able to do is limited to some gut rehabilitation. We also have them installing drywall, doing some of the structure, maybe with plywood, painting, landscaping, and all of the trades like mechanical, plumbing, electrical, all of those have to be done by a licensed professional.
Okay, so that's per city requirements.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, can you, we've mentioned solar panels. Are there other elements that you can talk about that make up a sustainable house?
Of course. So initially we went through with passive house design. Passive house design consists of having a very tight thermal envelope. So this includes rigid insulation, exterior insulation that's much thicker and has a greater R value than typical insulation, and also cavity insulation inside the house. Once you create an airtight thermal envelope, there's something known as a sick building syndrome, that is like no fresh air comes in, which is why we also have an energy recovery ventilator, also known as ERV. So this supplies the home with fresh air and also exhausts all of the old stale air from the house, so that there's continuous flow of fresh air throughout the house. This coupled with energy efficient appliances and also equipment, we have mini split for heating and cooling with exterior condensers, and also we're going all electric. You know, the city is moving towards not allowing gas in residential construction, mostly affordable housing, but we had proposed this initially to have all electric buildings to reduce the carbon emissions as well. So we have a energy efficient hot water heater also in the buildings, and then to top it off, the solar panels, just because we acknowledge, for example, electric hot water heaters consume much more electricity, can be more expensive for the homeowners to maintain than just a regular gas boiler. So that's why solar panels were also very important to us, because we're giving like an all-electric building to these homeowners. We just want to make sure the utility cost is not too much.
The solar panels connect to a battery, and then the house in turn connects to that battery? Is that, or is it, because another model is where it goes into the grid, right?
Yes. So there is a model where you can have a battery um, to store like the electricity generated from the solar. But we don't have that in this scenario. I believe there's still some regulations to work out in the city about solar storage. But this is just connected to the grid, and it goes back. So it's connected to the meter, and then just covers part of the utility usage of the home.
And then there's a formula so that you can calculate over the course of a year how much energy the house is producing and how much it's taking.
Correct. So it's essentially most of the homes are net zero capable, which means that they will be able to generate from the solar panels the same amount of electricity that they consume.
The way it works then for a homeowner, I mean, I assume these homeowners, then it becomes that much more affordable for them because they're obviously not paying utility bills.
Correct. Exactly. Their utility bills are so much lower, or maybe inexistent, or in some cases positive, if they're able to generate more electricity than they consume.
So what is this net zero project a significant portion of what Habitat New York City Westchester is doing, or is it I mean, how big is it now, and do you foresee it to become?
Well, we definitely see our Habitat Net Zero being a model to maybe future developments of single-family homes in New York City and possibly Westchester County. The city still has many vacant homes around Southeast Queens. You can see them when you go to the site visits. So there's still a lot of work to do in terms of single-family development. But as Charlotte mentioned, we also do much more. We also do multifamily developments, which also, we try to pursue similar energy efficient developments. We do have some requirements. Even from the get-go, the city has very stringent requirements in terms of energy efficiency and sustainability. They have their Enterprise Green Communities program, which kind of regulates that. But yes, to answer your question, Habitat Net Zero is definitely a model that we're seeing for single-family development, and we're trying to implement also this energy-efficient strategies in our multifamily developments.
Charlotte, other work that you're doing, Habitat, you're involved in preservation in the city. You want to give us an overview of that?
Yes, definitely. So, our preservation work is definitely connected to our commitment to permanent affordability. New York City has thousands of units that are limited equity co-ops throughout the city. And so as we committed to this model of permanent affordability for our new developments, we also expanded our work to work with the existing low to moderate income co-ops in the city. So currently our housing preservation program is really focused on multifamily buildings. Our housing preservation program operates through three different approaches: technical assistance, construction preservation services, and our lending through our community development finance institution, the Habitat NYC Community Fund. And so we've worked closely with the city and co-op boards to assist them to apply for the Green Housing Preservation Program loan. And so love that program, love that reaction, yes. It is, I think it's like the premier affordable housing finance product from the city. It focuses on energy efficiency and water conservation measures in existing buildings. So, it is easier in many ways to develop a building or a single-family home that is energy efficient. It's also really important that we focus on the existing building landscape that's in the city. 70% of carbon emissions in New York City are from buildings. So we have to develop new projects that are energy efficient. we also have to work on the buildings that exist. So through the Green Housing Preservation loan program, we've worked closely with boards to receive that financing to do that project. Our construction preservation services team has worked as the general contractor to actually do the rehabs, which include, a roof preservation or a roof replacement. And in the roof preservations, we also will coat the roof with a white silicone coating, so that also reduces the heating and cooling costs of the building by reflecting sunlight. It includes new window installations. The thermal bridging for older buildings is really a challenge. It's hard to replace insulation in a whole building, but windows are really important. There's a lot of energy and efficiency with older windows. Also upgrading heating systems. So that program has been really important, I think, for the preservation of existing buildings. Through our community fund, we also participate in that program as a lender. And also the community fund, since our inception in 2017, we've really tried to be a green-friendly lender. We will do unsecured loans, which are really important for mechanical installations like solar panels, for example. We also underwrite to the energy efficiency projections, which is becoming more common but hasn't always been for lenders. And we are a preferred lender on New York City Accelerator's list. So the New York City Accelerator is a program, basically they act as kind of a guide for existing property owners, rental, homeownership. These energy efficiency and green programs change day to day. It is really a challenge to follow. So the New York City Accelerator program exists to kind of help property owners to follow, the new requirements. What are the resources? And so we're a lender on that in that program, which is really exciting.
What is an unsecured loan?
Well, in terms of a mortgage, there's generally an asset that's connected to it, maybe a building. Lending on solar arrays, for example, can be kind of difficult because it's once that system is installed, it's not necessarily worth that much. You couldn't, if that person defaulted on that loan, you couldn't necessarily get your money back with that solar system. So by having an unsecured loan, you're essentially don't have anything to back it, like a building or like a physical asset that you could then resell should the borrower default. So unsecured lending on solar systems is kind of a typical model, especially for consumer loans. So if you wanted to borrow money for a solar system on your house, it's likely that it would be an unsecured loan because a lot of lenders don't want to can't back their mortgage with a solar array.
I should ask you where exactly in Queens, what neighborhoods are these? And what are the demographics of the neighborhoods?
Of course. So it's scattered all around. So it's Hollis, St. Albans. We have some in Jamaica. Demographics, mostly immigrant, low to moderate income households as well.
What's the time frame for this?
So the time frame, as I mentioned, the gut rehabs are done. We're hoping to complete the new construction early next year. We're getting right now deliveries of the modular homes and craning them to on site and just doing all the exterior finishes and interior finishes.
And I should ask you to define modular home too.
Of course. So these homes are being built in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania in a factory. They're built as 2 boxes, 1 box for the first floor, 1 box for the second floor. So all of the home is built off-site in the factory and then transported to site. It's very interesting logistic craning though. So we bring a very large crane, closed part of the street, and we set the homes first floor, second floor, and then there's some site work involved. So we do install the windows are being installed on site, the exterior insulation, and some of the MEP systems. So all of them are installed in the factory, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, but all of the connections between the cellar and the first floor and the second floor are done on site.
And these are, I think you said there's 3 different models, meaning 3 different configurations of these units.
Yes, there's 3 different model types, all ranging We have 4-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and 2-bedroom.
I'd like to open it up to questions. I think there are a lot. Oh, look at this. Yes.
To make those homes sustainable for the future. So if I was one of the people buying a home now, but in 5 years from now, I'm moving to a different location, so I obviously going to sell the house. Is there something put in the deed on the land records that makes it permanently affordable? Does the seller, the original seller, does he or she have the choice of who to sell it to? They have to go back to your organization. How does that work?
Of course, that is a great question. So since we receive subsidy from the city, there is a regulatory agreement that binds, like controls basically how the resale of the home. So there is a cap on the appreciation of the home, and they are also required to sell the home to a similar household income. In addition to that, for this project specifically, we have an interborough community land trust. We're partners of an interborough community land trust. So the intention is upon construction completion, the land, ownership of the land is transferred to the community land trust, and ownership of the improvements is transferred to the homeowner. So that allows for additional regulatory oversight. So the regulatory agreement with the city is for 40 years. The ground lease with the interborough land, community land trust is for 99 years and renewable, so basically in perpetuity. So this community land trust model allows us to preserve the affordability of the home basically in perpetuity and avoid this home, like with all the city and state subsidy, to go back to the market shortly after being sold to an eligible home buyer.
Sorry, can you explain again? So the community land trust, that's one level, and then the homeowner owns the home itself, but not the land.
Correct.
Yes, we like to describe it as a split deed. So there is a deed to the property, and the deed, is in interborough community land trust's name, but the ground lease to the homeowner extends the long-term 99-year ownership of the home, essentially to the homeowner.
I think this is typical in Europe, right? That kind of model where you, I forget what it's called, but it's not, sorry? Freehold? Okay. In the UK. Freehold in the UK.
Yeah.
And community land trusts are not necessarily a new model in the United States. They've definitely been in use since about the 60s. But for New York City, I mean, we do have operating and long-standing community land trusts, but it's not a typical model. It's gained a lot of traction. There's a lot of interest. And so we partnered with 3 other not-for-profit advocacy and develop organizations to form Interborough Community Land Trust in 2017, I believe.
Yeah, and also I forgot to add, another level of affordability that we have is that the city gives us a property tax exemption. So these homes are also tax exempt for the duration of the regulatory agreement, and by layering it with the community land trust, we are also able to preserve that property tax abatement beyond the regulatory period.
That's a big savings as well. Other questions?
Oh, wow. Okay. Hello. Thank you. A wonderful presentation. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I have a background in architecture. I designed my first high-performance luxury building back in 2009. It was like probably 19 or 20 then, but I'm trying to break into the affordable housing market for myself and other like-minded individuals. I would love to help you break into the Westchester County market. I'm been what you call mentored by a former president of the Westchester County. I think we're recorded here, so I won't say name drop too much, but Ms. Klein would love to embrace you in Westchester. She really is, has been, well, okay, I'm digressing. So 2 questions come to mind. One is, you mentioned the audience. I wonder, and I'm also a member of the, committee member of the Equity Working Group at LEAD as an accredited professional since 2009 as well. So, The challenges, and you mentioned co-ops, man, our seniors are having a little bit of a hard time keeping up with their maintenance fees. And, this is where we have to preserve the housing for the next generation. We've got $1 million co-ops and $60,000 co-ops, and I think we can bridge the gap there a little bit, so thank you. What do you think about the education component of the audience so that there's maybe a creation of more demand and also the maintenance of these properties? And also, how has your process been outside of the 5 boroughs, right? So we've got the 5 urban cities in New York State, pardon me. That has plenty of urban areas that need that bridging and the assistance. So I wonder what your experience has been, relative to the authorities having jurisdiction and breaking into that. And maybe a third question would be, how long have you, when did you start this amazing program, and what are your 5-10-year goals? Because I would love to contribute to it. Thank you.
Take your pick.
Okay, great. Thank you. So certainly we can exchange information after if you're interested in getting involved. So in terms of the education component, it's a big part of our work. With our first-time homebuyer program, we have that as a big part from beginning to end in terms of working with our home buyers so that they know what it is that they're buying. Our team is here, Izzy and Anders. We've been really trying to be in lockstep with the construction team so that we know what it is that they're building so we can explain it to the home buyers. Because I think with new technologies, it's always important that people understand how they operate, and so that it doesn't become a burden or a problem. So education is a big part of our first-time homebuyer program. We have a post-purchase program so that we try to continue ongoing engagement opportunities with homeowners. We just did a best practices for greening your home and operating energy efficiency, which Izzy and Anders led, and that's really exciting because it's an opportunity to get people together to share what are some best practices. How do I keep my bills low? I don't have a net zero home. I'm paying Con Ed, the Con Ed electricity bills are very volatile right now. So we're trying to engage existing homeowners from our program and that level as well. And through our housing preservation work, that's really where the technical assistance comes in. Borrowing money is really scary, especially for these older co-ops that have never taken on debt before. And so talking with those co-ops about, this is actually a safe and sustainable strategy for your building. You need these upgrades so that you can reduce your operating costs. And with this affordable financing, you can, it seems counterintuitive, but you can reduce your maintenance costs, right, by taking on debt. So we really have to focus on that. Now, Juliana was talking about, the regulatory schema that we work within. We really support that because it's coupled with a property tax benefit. So that's for our development projects and for our preservation projects. So that can be a real challenge to talk with existing co-op communities about, getting into this regulatory agreement with the city. People see it as, punitive almost, right? And we really want to talk to people about, this is an opportunity to reduce your operating costs and provide a service for the city, which is being an affordable, homeowner, right? And that's a service, operating an affordable property. So we do a lot of that in our housing preservation work as well. So that is the, education component. I maybe talked too long. I forgot your other questions. Do you remember?
Yes.
Well, 3 years ago, we were awarded the Westchester geography, and so we've really just started to hit the ground running in Westchester. It's been really exciting because we have more of a preservation focus there. The need is focused a lot around, it does tend to be seniors who are house poor. They have all their money in their house. They have limited incomes at this point in their lives. So we have an aging in place program that we're starting there, an accessory dwelling unit, ADU program that we're getting off the ground, as well as flood relief for people who have been affected by recent flooding in the area. And so, we don't want to see climate change as the new gentrifier, right? Someone's home becomes ravaged by a storm and they can't, afford the repairs, they have to leave. So the strategies in Westchester are really focused on existing homeowners, and they have to meet similar income to our first-time homebuyer program requirements. I believe it's more up to like 120% of AMI in Westchester County. That's the cap of a lot of our programs. Some are a little bit lower, 80%. It really depends on the funding. I would say 5 to 10 years, we have a really exciting pipeline in New York City. Juliana, I don't know if you want to speak to some of that.
Yeah, I would say our goal is definitely to develop and preserve as many affordable homes as we can in New York City and also Westchester County. We have, as I mentioned, we have a very fascinating multifamily portfolio as well. We recently, well, about 3 years ago, we completed the largest development to date, which was a 57-unit cooperative in the Bronx. And now we're working on another cooperative also in the Bronx, 66 units. So we're just excited to continue to cater New Yorkers, low and moderate, as many as we can.
On the topic of education, how does Habitat go about making prospective home buyers aware of this opportunity?
Well, and I definitely wanted to make sure we took some time to say, if you're interested in applying for the Net Zero homes, we're losing our patience waiting for that project to start marketing. So if you are interested, you should definitely just, visit our website. You can also send an email. Anders will get it. But if you go on our website, you can sign up so that you get a notification when the marketing period opens. So if you're interested, definitely do that. We are required to conduct community information sessions once the marketing period opens. So there's one that's at the beginning of the marketing period, there's one at the end, 60-day marketing period. So that's one of the ways that we get the word out. Because it's through HPD's lottery system, we get a lot of applications. So for 16 units, I don't know. I mean, we could get like 20,000 applications or something like that. It's really overwhelming because the need and the interest is so great. But yeah, we have to do an ad in a local newspaper, community information sessions, and then I think HPD's lottery is quite a effective way to get the word out to as many New Yorkers as possible.
I think you also had a question at one sec about other parts of New York State. How is New York State broken down by Habitat? Are there several different affiliates?
There are several affiliates in New York State. I know there's a Dutchess County affiliate, and we also have a New York State General affiliate that I believe does mostly like oversee and assist smaller affiliates. But yes, all Habitat affiliates are focused in a specific geographic area, so our focus is solely New York City and Westchester County.
And does each affiliate do its own fundraising?
Well, and I think that's to Juliana's point about there's the New York State affiliate, and then it's the New York State support affiliate, and then there is international, which is based in Georgia, and so there are some opportunities to work with the affiliate, but we all do our own fundraising. Yeah.
So you're raising funds for a budget that is your pool to support your activities within the 5 boroughs in Westchester.
Exactly. So I think there are, and our VP of Matt Dunbar is here as well. I know he knows this number, but I believe it's 24 or 26 affiliates in New York State. But another way that we are supporting and engaging with affiliates is through our New York City Community Fund. We are licensed to lend throughout New York State, and so we've already successfully lent to other affiliates in other municipalities on their development budgets. So that was one of the reasons that we wanted to start the community fund, so that we could support other affiliates throughout New York State to be able to develop more units.
Other questions? Someone in the back? Yeah.
That's accessory dwelling unit. There's also many different names for them. So it essentially is an additional unit on one lot. So sometimes an ADU can be part of the existing structure. Maybe it's in a basement and it has a separate entrance. It could be above an existing garage, or it could be a freestanding structure that's on the lot. And so it's a really exciting opportunity to create more units of affordable housing in lower density municipalities. So the state recently released funds to a number of recipients, and we were one of them, for Westchester County to work with existing homeowners to develop accessory dwelling units on their properties. And so it's also, we see it as an aging in place strategy because it's a form of income. The additional unit will operate as a rental. So it will be an additional source of income for that homeowner. And it's also a, affordable housing strategy because we'll be creating more units. And, that's going to be part of the housing solution. The granny flat, right? It's called, yeah.
So what you're saying is that a homeowner in the program has the option to rent out part of their property under certain conditions.
Yeah, I mean, because we operate within this regulatory schema, because that's where a lot of our money comes from. There are requirements, and so these units, it can function either way. Like if someone wanted to live in the ADU that they build and then rent out their main home, they could, or vice versa. But a requirement of receiving the funding from us is that the home is rented out. I mean, if you rented it out to your mother-in-law, for example, you literally could rent it to her for $1. There is no requirement in terms of how, there's not a floor, but because we want to make sure that we're not creating Airbnb units, right? That someone is just holding a vacant unit to use at their leisure or whatever. So there are certain requirements, and they have to serve as long-term rentals.
Let me get the woman behind you.
In terms of aging in place strategies, couldn't it also be used as a caregiver's apartment?
Absolutely, yeah.
But
exactly.
So it doesn't have to show that it's producing income.
It does not have to show that it's producing income. The lease could be for, there has to be a rental lease, right? Okay. And so however that agreement looks, it's not necessarily about the rental income solely, but it is about being a long-term rental.
Okay.
With regards to the ADU that you're talking about, do the people who rent it, do they have to qualify in the same income so that the ADU is for a low to moderate income family or person?
So no. The current way that the program operates as of now, the people who apply to receive the funding to build the ADU on their property, they have to income qualify. Then they essentially become a landlord. So as of now, there is not an income requirement for your renter. The requirement is that the ADU operates as a long-term rental. So we're really trying to help people who are low to moderate income stay in their home and creating a rental unit for someone of modest means, or maybe not. Maybe they have a higher income and they want to live in this ADU. So it's a production strategy as well. We're increasing housing production.
Yeah, in the back there.
ADUs can also be energy efficient, because I know we're talking about sustainability. And so I think, from the community fund standpoint, we're also interested in providing loans so that, someone could put solar on an ADU. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities with it. This is our first entree into it. It's also relevant to New York City because of, the issue with basement units, right? And so the city has been trying to pilot a project to legalize a lot of these basement units. And so, in a New York City context, there's also a need for it too. We just are doing this work currently in Westchester County. Sorry.
Is there an intention to actually certify these as passive houses, or are you just implementing the techniques of that building style?
So for net zero, unfortunately, we are not certifying passive house just because that was an additional cost that we would have to incur in, which at the time it just didn't work with our budget, so we said we'll just implement as many passive house strategies as we can without necessarily pursuing passive house certification, just because there is a threshold. So passive house certification is extremely stringent, and it's hard to achieve. Whereas by following the guidelines, you can still get a very good energy performing home without the excessive cost or without the additional cost that would require certification.
And what would the benefit be of having the certification?
The benefit, what we looked at was mostly marginal, and most part is just having the certification and having that. I believe there was some subsidy or some additional funding, but it was not significant enough to cover the additional cost.
Yes, in the end, yeah.
Hi, thank you both for your work. I was wondering how you're thinking about climate resiliency in New York City, and with both new build and all of the affordable housing that's already existing, how are you thinking towards the future of these extreme weather scenarios that we're seeing?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because we should and can talk about sustainability all day, and I feel like a lot of the conversations has been focused on energy efficiency, but then it's like, oh no, we also have to deal with, mitigation, because it's here. Climate change is here. I think, we're selective about sites that we go for through the RFP process. New York City literally is a flood zone, so, but with that in mind, we do try to avoid areas that are really flood prone. I think, some of our projects developing the heating systems on the roof is a way to be more, make a property more efficient, or rather resilient. I think, again, a lot of this goes back to the funding, because, it's going to be difficult to avoid buildings being affected by climate change. And so what are the opportunities for repair after it happens? What are the funding opportunities, the financing?
Yeah, and I will also add, although the net zero homes are not in a flood zone, we do have some water management strategies. For example, in the basements, we do a French drain around the perimeter to control water. Also have some pumps in the basement to take any additional water. We've heard that area sometimes is prone to the basement's flooding. So we have that French drain, the sump pump, and we also have dry wells in the back to also have additional water. And just trying to make sure there's enough permeable surfaces in the design, just so for water to be absorbed as well.
Is there, do you have an objective for all habitat homes to be net zero, or is that unrealistic?
It's not unrealistic. It's something that we would like for it to be the standard. It just really depends on the subsidy and the subsidy available and the funds available. At this point, we really need to advocate for the open door to increase their subsidy, since it's not enough to just build a regular home, even less than a net zero home. But it is our goal. It's just we are constrained by funding and whatever funding is available.
Are there other questions? Yeah.
What's the primary perceived benefit of home ownership over rental when your capital growth is seemingly limited?
That's a great question. And we've also considered rental projects. So I think, earlier when we started off, and it's like you've seen one habitat. There are definitely many ways to provide decent, affordable, long-term housing. And in New York City, rental is, definitely a part of that. And so I think as we move forward and want to remain relevant and sustainable as an organization in this city, we're certainly open to, participating in rental projects. At the same time, we really do believe in the homeownership model as a way for people to build equity in their communities. And so we see that equity as not just, the financial benefit. It certainly is part of it. It's also the community that you create, and knowing that you are invested in this community Your kids are going to go to school here. You're going to vote here. You have that, sense of place. We have an epidemic of eviction in this country. The majority of our, properties are owned by private interests. And so having more space that's owned by individuals, community members, is really important. So we see, affordable housing is a spectrum. And we, as a Habitat for Humanity affiliate that creates and preserves affordable home ownership opportunities, we're part of that spectrum. We're not the only answer. So affordable home ownership has to be a part of that spectrum. We need to create opportunities for people to participate in the home ownership market at different levels of income, certainly working class people. And so that's why we developed the community land trust strategy, so that we can have more secured, community assets that are available in perpetuity.
And there are certain rules if you buy a home with Habitat, if you become a homeowner, you can't just flip it. And, how does that work? What constraints are there?
Well, as I mentioned before, there is a 2% appreciation cap on the income, like on the sale price per year. And there, sorry. That's the sale price appreciation. The income level is also restricted. So that basically doesn't allow them to just flip the house after a year or two. They would have to repay the subsidy. That would be the.
And people are always like, oh, but I can't sell the house for another 10 or 15 years, right? And it's like, well, technically you could, but you probably shouldn't, because, the whole idea of this is tenure. You want to stay in that home as long as possible so that when you do leave, you have that equity that you've built over time. And so the limited equity model is not no equity, it's just limited. And the benefit, kind of is there the longer you stay in your home. And the community land trust model is really, really important for single family homes, because also through that community land trust, you can call it restrictions or regulation, and that is definitely there, but it's also stewardship. And so part of that stewardship is, you can't sublet the unit on Airbnb. Like, that's literally, you can't do that, or you will, there are, enforcement of the community land trust. And that same structure exists for co-ops that we, work with, that have a regulatory agreement or in their bylaws or what have you. There are restrictions that are about the resale and also about, just living in the home to make sure that it serves its intention of being an affordable, unit for low to moderate income folks, and not used as like an income source necessarily, in a different way.
Does anyone have a last question? Yes, all the way in the back. Can you repeat that? I didn't hear you. Maybe someone.
Rent control and rent stabilized apartments, how does it work? Do you, have you had any involvement from landlords who have tenants in rent control and rent stabilized apartments?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm not quite sure what your specific question is. Have we been involved? We are trying to expand how we create homeownership opportunities. And so that certainly does involve, rental buildings that are on the private market. So there's been a lot of controversy and attention on rent stabilized units currently, particularly because of the strengthening of the rent stabilized laws in 2019. And so, we're seeing that there's some disinvestment. Landlords are having, crises about operating, these rent stabilized units. And so we see that as an opportunity potentially to transfer those units to the tenants and create housing co-ops, in that scenario. Now, rent stabilized properties are really important, and we definitely want keep them stabilized and have those options for renters. We also see there could be an opportunity for buildings that are being neglected or the landlord no longer wants to own it, for those tenants to organize and own the building. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that is a way that we have tried to engage. I mean, we definitely, partner with organizations that are tenant advocacy and right groups, and we support them. And we do see that the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, which is legislation that's been introduced at the city level, we support that, and we see it as an opportunity to create additional units of affordable homeownership.
And with that, I want to thank you, Charlotte and Juliana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I also want to thank my colleagues Nicole Mahoney, who's right there at the door, and Sarah Bees. This was a particularly challenging one logistically to put together, so thank you both very much. Having nothing to do with you all. These two, I'm sure, will stick around, as will the other Habitat people. So if you have further questions, and please avail yourselves.